Hello there, folks. Those of you who are watching the recording on YouTube, just heads up, wise thing to do, of course, is to skip 5 minutes ahead to where the show begins properly. But you've probably already done that already, so hats off to you. All right. Very glad to see folks here. Oh, hello, the usual suspects. We're talking to our Patreon fans who've turned up early, well, bang on time, actually, to watch us during the countdown. Welcome to you all. It's really great to see you. Anybody watching the recording of this on YouTube, hopefully will be aware by now that this is only going out live to our Patreon supporters. So if you fancy joining them for the live next time around, have a look and click through to our Patreon page, where you'll find loads of goodies for your $5 a month. Okay, that's I'll probably repeat that at the top of the show, but never mind.
Oh,
How are you
think
down
so,
there?
yeah.
How are you down there in France, as per usual, Rupert?
I'm melting, as is customary for the last few weeks. It's ridiculously hot, and but churlish to even think about complaining, because it's a long winter, is it not? So we'll make the most of it anyway.
Yeah,
it is. It's very warm.
Anyway,
warm. And of course, I can't have the fan on because it's too noisy.
We must say hello to our folks from Patreon, though, Rupert.
We must, yes.
Yeah. Hello to Krim, Soggy Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Murky but dry Wolverhampton. Hello, Colin. You've set a precedent, you see. What's happening is we're getting weather forecasts from all over the world now.
Or weather reports. Excellent. This is what we want. This is what we want. Hello, David. From a rainy Manchester. There you go.
Jill, what was John from Remnants of Hurricane Debbie. Blimey, are you okay? Jill from a damp morning in southeast Queensland. David's having a definitely soggy evening. Is that too much information, we ask? Jeff says, hello from moist Michigan. Sunny. Frank from sunny Amsterdam. John, another Michigander. Sue from soggy Somerset. We had a soggy Somerset. Oh dear. Hello to Missy. And Alison can't join us today. Tropical storm Debbie has wiped out her power and internet. Oh my lord.
Oh gosh, really? I know that a lot of people are struggling with that. In fact, Krim mentioned it earlier on.
Andrew from an overcast Kent. Evening from Switzerland, from Sue. We don't know what the weather is in Switzerland. Thoughts go out to anybody affected by Storm Hurricane Debbie. Yikes.
Yes, indeed.
Hi there, Sibylla. Hi there, Helen. Pavia, good to see you. Central Europe is melting as well, if it's any consolation to you, Rupert. Yeah.
Hey, we like to share.
Alison, hello. Thank you. Sunny in New Mexico. No surprises there then, I suppose, Francis. Good to see you. Stuart, a damp Dartmoor.
Whereabouts are you on Dartmoor, Stuart?
Hello, Chris. Anyway, 30 seconds till this starts proper. What we've got lined up for you tonight, we've got 7 items in total, all news items that we've gathered from the last few months of news in the world of prehistoric archaeology. Hope you enjoy it, and I hope I remember how this all goes. It's actually a couple of months since we've done a live.
It's absurd, actually, that
no excuses. You talked all the way through the sting there.
Never mind, eh?
Hello, folks, and welcome to you. And, of course, welcome to you if you're watching the recording of this on YouTube. Slightly differently, this will have been a recording only, and the live version of this has gone to being Patreon only, I'm afraid. They're a very deserving lot, we thought. So we're giving them all the perks. Anyway, have a look at our Patreon page to find out a bit more about that. So what have we got in store, Rupert?
Oh, we've got 6,000-year-old wine from Greece.
Yes, we have.
Which is quite exciting. We've got a 3,300-year-old shipwreck. We'll argue about whether it's a shipwreck or not later. We have got a 4,000-year-old labyrinth-type structure found on Crete, which is intriguing. We've got something about LIDAR and Cahokia. Is that the right pronunciation of
Yes, it is.
Cahokia?
Yes, it is. I checked.
Well done. And I've just got adverts in my way that I can't get rid of at the moment. Then we've got this is nice actually. 13,000-year-old sewing kit has been found in Turkey, which is rather exciting. Then we've got. What did Bronze Age people do with all that bronze? So this is new research looking into the nature of money, basically, and exchange of scrap metal, basically, which we've talked about that theoretically before, but interesting one here. There's an intriguing thing here that's about a partial alphabet has been found on a piece of stone, a broken piece of stone, and this goes back to it's linked to the Phoenician alphabet, so that's intriguing. And then lastly, there's something. If we get this far, then we might have a slight rant about this. But there's a bit of news about the Antikythera mechanism, which we haven't made up our minds whether it's really news or not.
Yeah.
But
so I don't know what to do, but hang around to the end to find out.
Yeah.
So as you gathered, it's all about news, catching up with the news. I mean, to be honest, we've had to cast out quite a few lot. Otherwise we'd be into a 4-hour show, wouldn't we? I mean, that's the thing. There's dozens and dozens, and some of them are very dry, and some of them not. But ultimately we have to be picky because, as Mike said, otherwise we'd be here all night. Yeah. But no, that's it. We think this is a good selection. Yes, we do. So shall I kick it off without any more fluff and bumbling about?
Without further ado.
Further ado. Okay, let's see. Let's have a look, see what we can get on the screen. So here we are. Do you know what? Our source seems to be the Greek Reporter quite a lot. Yeah, I mean,
we like the Greek Reporter.
Yeah, these screens that you can see, by the way, they appear on the web usually. You have to go to the reader version on Safari, which is really, really, really useful because it clears up most of the adverts and just leaves a sort of plain text. If you're wondering how I get this without all the usual guff that's associated with most websites. But this is directly from the Greek Reporter. I think there's 2 or 3 from the Greek Reporter. Yeah.
There are this time, actually, yeah. And I mean, for those of you, you know that we talk about the Siberian Times every now and again because it's amazing how some of the really, country-specific newspapers or news sources. Some of them are really good, and I think probably they're my two favourites anyway: the Greek Reporter and the Siberian Times. There's some cracking stuff in them.
So, not to beat about, in the prehistoric settlement of Dickily-Tash, I got to say it. Do you want to say it too, Rupert?
Dickily-Tash. Dickily-Tash. And the great thing about Dickily-Tash is it means standing stone.
It means standing stone, yes, it does, as we'll come to in the
upright stone,
upright stone. We'll come to in the text. In the prehistoric settlement of Dickily-Tash in northern Greece, that's the only reason it's in the news here. The oldest samples of wine ever recorded in Europe were discovered. I don't know. That's maybe not quite right. They haven't found the actual wine, but proof of the process. Slight change. The samples date back to 4200 BC and reverse existing data regarding the way of life during the Neolithic period. The archaeological site excavated in the last decade by Greek and French archaeologists near the modern city of Kavala dates to the Neolithic period, that's 6400 to 4000 BC, and the Bronze Age, 3000 to 1100 BC. Remains from Hellenistic and Roman times also exist, however, and a Byzantine tower crowns its top. The name Dickily-Tash dates from the Ottoman period and means upright stone in Turkish. It refers to a Roman funerary monument standing along the Via Egnatia, the Roman road that connects the Adriatic coast to Byzantium. Didn't know that. Near the eastern entrance of the ancient city of Philippi and very close to the prehistoric settlement. So, the actual discovery at Dickily-Tash, one of the most significant discoveries are the remains of timber-framed buildings from the late Neolithic period. These structures provide valuable information about the building techniques and lifestyles of these early inhabitants. Archaeologists unearthed a house destroyed about 4900 BC, nicknamed the House of the Ukrainium. This dwelling contained a unique decorative element, a clay structure incorporating the rear part of a domesticated bull's skull. Actually, I'm loving all this stuff because we're all about the people, aren't we, Rupert? And I think,
indeed,
aside from the exciting thing about early wine, finding somewhere that is speaking so much to how people were living at the time, because it's I don't know what the preservation condition.
They made a big thing in the article, didn't they? The whole thrust of the article is about the wine, or evidence for it, but it's actually the other stuff that they found that is for me richer, really. The fact that they found cooking vessels, for example, and beads, jewelry, that sort of stuff. It is, as Mike said, it's people. It's all about the people, and this is quite rich.
So Klaas has just said, thank you so much, Klaas. Looks like we still have an old stream description text under the video announcing Lee Clare. Well, mea culpa. That'll be down to me then. Thanks, Klaas, for pointing that out. I'm sure nobody else would have noticed. Nothing I can do about it right
Lee
now.
was the last show, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was. Yeah. Anyway, let's move along. So excavations have also uncovered a variety of artifacts that shed light on the daily lives of the people of Dickily-Tash. The people of Dickily-Tash. We want to.
Where's
There should be a rhyme. Should be a limerick or something. These include stone tools, fired clay vessels for cooking and storage, personal ornaments like beads and pendants, and amphorae with painted decoration. Let's have a proper look at where it's at and see if it filters into Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge. It's probably a bit late for that, for the first wave of farmers, probably, but still may have a narrative and a story to tell inside that. We've also unearthed considerable quantity of charred plant remains, including wood charcoal used as building material or fuel, and grains and fruits brought to the site for food or other purposes, e.g. medicines, fuel building or weaving. The anthropological study shows a rich variety of the forest canopy near the site and reveals, amongst other things, the intensive use of fruit trees, e.g. apples, pears, plums and figs by the site's inhabitants already during the Neolithic. Sounds like they were okay.
Yeah. They knew what they were up to.
The archaeobotanical study confirms that most of these trees were exploited for their fruits, which could have been consumed on their own or included as meal ingredients. The primary plant foods during the Neolithic and Bronze Age were cereals and legumes, as is the case throughout the Aegean during these periods. Different wheat species, barley, lentils, peas, bitter vetch are the main crops are tested at Dickley Tash. Sounds like a good place. And, I mean, the state of preservation of that. I mean, think of that, how old that is. I want to go there. What a great dig. But anyway, the most exciting discovery at Dickley Tash is evidence of the earliest known winemaking. Analysis of residues in storage vessels and botanical remains like grape seeds suggest inhabitants were producing wine as early as 4300 BC. It's an impressive and important discovery. The archaeologist of the 17th Effort of the Prehistoric and Classical Antiquities and co-director of the excavations at Dickley Tash, Dimitri Mamadou said. Dimitri Malamadou said. She explained that during the excavations that took place in a house on the archaeological site called House 1, quantities of carbonized grape berries that had been pressed were discovered in pots, a fact which proves the extraction of juice from grapes. So there weren't any wine residues, but the residue of the production of wine. So far, we knew that people drank wine in the Bronze Age from the 12th century BC henceforth, but now we learn that the winemaking process was known long before that age, since 4200 BC. Malamadou stated. Cool.
Yeah, no, that's cool. We should. I was just trying to find the location of Dickley Tash there, but I can't. I can't call up the map of it in a way that I can actually read it right now. I'll have to do that later.
I've just got. We just got a bunch of.
It says the
Alex
site is permanently closed. It says. Say that again.
We've got a bunch of smart Alex in the chat tonight. I tell you.
No change there then.
Well, look, yeah, Nigel says seems today is the 9th of January as well.
Thanks, Nigel.
What kind of friends? Have you got anything more to say about wine, Rupert?
Not about wine specifically. I think the thing that's broadly more exciting about Dickley Tash, apart from the fact that we need to say it as often as possible, is just how rich this excavation is. And I mean, prior to this article, I've got to be honest, I'd never heard of it before, at all. And yet this site has been. Can you remember offhand when it was found? It's not new. So it's. I think we should have a look. I mean, we've got to go to Greece for Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge. So if it's not too far off our route, then we should.
I mean, as far as Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge is concerned, we will look at any site that has a deep, that has a deep past, that has an has feet in the deep past, but has survived. Well into the later years, our prime site that we want to go to, that tells a story in itself through the ages is the Fracti Cave. A cave site, but it's probably one of the most important archaeological sites in the world, with stuff right from the Mesolithic through to the period that we're talking about. First evidence of obsidian moving about in the Aegean is there, well before the farmers got there. And the first evidence of farming in, domesticated cereals and stuff in that cave outside of Anatolia. What are you giggling? Tickling?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to pick up some comments here anyway. Thank you, Missy. Missy has given us a location there. It's in between Drama and Kavala. So I'll check that up. Frank very sensibly said, I wonder if there is evidence that the grape juice was fermented. They can be detected as tiny holes in pottery. I like to think I haven't read an excavation report on this. I haven't read any papers on this, so I don't know. You'd like to think that they're not just guessing that it was wine as opposed to grape juice. So that's something to look out for. I was laughing because Stuart said Dickily Tesh would be a good name for a pole vaulter, but
yeah. Best suggestion is from Sue. We should all take a drink every time somebody says Dickily Tash. Oi!
Yes. Yeah. It's a shame it's just water, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, it is. Just water. Honest. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys, for all your input. Hope we're amusing you. So, shall I talk now? Anything more? No. Shall I?
No. I think we will keep an eye on it because it's it's quite exciting overall, really.
Yeah. Moving
on.
Next, we're off the coast of Greece, and 3,300-year-old ship discovered. Words to say about that. Yes, discovered off the Israeli coast, the oldest ever found in deep waters. Bear in mind as we go through these, folks, you may have come across these before because they're not necessarily bang up to date. This one's been around for a while, but we did want to say words about it earlier, but we only got round to doing a live, had the opportunity. Researchers say location of wreck carrying hundreds of intact storage vessels proves late Bronze Age mariners could journey far out to sea. Those are not oxygen cylinders, they are actual amphorae that they've taken from the bottom of the sea. And when we're talking about the bottom of the sea here, as we will find out in the article, we're talking about a mile down. So this is difficult. This is very difficult archaeology. You can't send a diver down that far. Well, I don't think you can. So this retrieval seems to have been robotic. Anyway, I'll carry on. In a groundbreaking archaeological discovery, the Israel Antiquities Authority announced Thursday, I can't remember which I think it was in March or April roundabout that this came out, that Natural Gas Company's standard survey of the Eastern Mediterranean floor...
Mine's dated June, actually, 20th of June.
Oh, did that? Not that long ago. Yeah. God, time seems to have slowed down. Had uncovered the most ancient ship ever found in deep seas. They discovered the remains of the ship from the 14th to 13th century BCE proves that late Bronze Age mariners could navigate the seas without a line of sight to the shore, contrary to what was previously believed, the IAA said. Do you want to comment on that already or leave it to the end?
Yeah, go on, leave it till the end.
Okay.
Then we can just have an argument.
Hold that thought about
them, not with...
the nomenclature, i.e. ship, and the words contrary to what was previously believed. The approximately 3,300-year-old ship with a cargo of hundreds of intact amphorae was found 90 kilometres off northern Israel's coast at a depth of 1.8 kilometres, so a tad over a mile. Only two other shipwrecks with cargo are known from the late Bronze Age in the Mediterranean Sea, both found off the Turkish coast. Uluburun being one, is it? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Uluburun, yeah.
Uluburun shipwreck.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of
I
those.
can't remember the name of the other one, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, both of those shipwrecks were found relatively close to shore, said Jacob Sharvit, head of the IAA Marine Unit. There is tremendous potential here for research. This newly discovered ship is preserved at such a great depth that time has frozen the moment of disaster. Its body and contents have not been disturbed by the human hand, nor affected by waves and currents, which do impact shipwrecks in shallow waters, he said. The exciting recent find began when a submersible robot operated by Energean, a natural gas exploration and production company operating several offshore fields, spotted what seems to be a large pile of jugs heated on the sea floor. So when you see that through your monitor, through your little robot eye, a mile down, I presume you get a little bit excited. What a moment that must have been.
Well, I just think it's great that they reported it to any archaeological body, because normally I don't know how much gas prospectors would worry about stuff like this.
Yeah,
But,
well, I think they're pretty much obliged to, like any developer anywhere, if they,
maybe.
So, don't need that. Shipwrecks found near the Turkish coast were accessible. Yes, so this is the thing about the Uluburun shipwreck, is that their entire contents and parts of the ship themselves were retrieved, because there were extensive excavations went on over the previous years, and that was quite a bounty find, from such a way back in time. But that's close to shore, doesn't prove anything about, except that they were plying the shores, maybe. So using the Energean Star ship, so you're actually using the energy company's ship, they're equipped to conduct deep sea work. Technicians used a specially built tool designed to extract artifacts with minimal risk of damage to the entire assemblage. The team confirmed the ship was 12 to 14 meters long and was transporting hundreds of vessels. Some of them were visible above the ocean floor, but the muddy bottom concealed a second layer of amphorae. And it seems that the wooden beams of the ship are also buried down in the mud. Over the 2 days, 2 Canaanite vessels, each from a different end of the ship, were extracted. Those are the ones you can see in the photographs, I presume. And this was done to minimize disturbances to the intact assemblage of the boat and its cargo. So I'll skip on because it's taking a little bit of time. So here we go. The academic assumption until now has been that trade in that time was executed by safely flitting from port to port, hugging the coastline within eye contact. The discovery of this boat now changes our entire understanding of ancient mariner abilities. It is the very first to be found at such a great distance with no line of sight to any landmass, he said. It's presumed they navigated by celestial bodies. They're not quite sure why the ship sank, and it's quite possible that the answers to these questions will be forthcoming from further research, though at a mile deep I'm not quite sure how they're going to do that. Anyway, a couple of points to pick up on. They're calling it a ship. It is, max 14 meters long. You have...
it's a boat. It's a boat. I know that it is picky, but,
picky?
It is our duty to be picky.
Never.
And a ship, a boat becomes a ship when it's 200 feet long. And even from a metric point of view, they changed that to 60 meters, which is 197 feet. Just to round it off for meters. But yes, basically, if it's smaller than 200 feet long, it's a boat. So calling this a shipwreck is a stretch. but we'll let them have it because a boat wreck doesn't really sound right, does it?
Like much. No, yeah. And anyway, it would have been large-ish for its time, I can only presume. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 14 meters. It's it's a few car lengths, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. So anyway, I don't know if we mentioned this before. I mentioned the Fructi Cave, of course, and which supplies the earliest evidence. That Fructi Cave, going back 10,000 BC, provides the earliest evidence of proof of mariners operating out of the site of the coastline, because the obsidian in Fructi Cave comes from Milos, which you can get to by island hopping, but you have to go out in the open sea to get to it. So yeah, the Aegean Sea was being sailed, quite extensively, well before this discovery. I mean, it's not. This is actual proof, not sort of circumstantial proof. When you've got it, I mean, Nigel says it could have been blown much further offshore than normal. Not that far. I wouldn't have thought that much further off. But anyway.
Well, I think, in fairness, there are various accounts, historical as well as prehistoric, that just whether people have been caught up in a storm and have been blown miles and miles and miles off course. It does happen. But the thing about this notion of people not being able to navigate across open water, I mean, there's all sorts of examples of people, non-local stuff being found on various islands, which can only have been reached by long-distance travel across open waters.
Exactly. So, you can't see Cyprus from Turkey, can you?
No, you can't.
You can't see Crete from any of the I mean, so it's bonkers.
And do you remember we did? I can't remember the name of the island specifically, but hello, my cat's come to say hello. But do you remember we did an article a year or so ago that was in the Caribbean,
yes,
where they had found all sorts of stuff relating to these islands that are well off any line of sight. It seemed an odd claim to make here, really. But
as John said, John says it's been said that early Egyptians didn't navigate far into the Mediterranean. A claim that Heyerdahl tried to challenge for Heyerdahl. Might this discovery lend more credibility to Thor's notions? That and the evidence we've just been discussing. The fact that the early farmers made it to Cyprus and Crete way before this, and the Egyptians, and those kinds of journeys wouldn't have been made. Let's set out into the open sea with all our cattle and goods and all the rest of it and see what we can find. They had to be deliberate, intentional things. Otherwise, there's no footfall to establish, communities. New communities. Sue Butler asked, "What about Malta?" Yeah, Malta's well out of sight of land, I think, isn't it? And that was inhabited quite early in the early-ish or mid-Neolithic, wasn't it? At least we know. Yeah, so
I can't remember the earliest dates on Malta, but yes, absolutely. I think it's an odd claim, but it doesn't detract from the fact that this is nevertheless it's a phenomenal discovery. And the fact that it was carrying that much wine, if it's or that many vessels anyway, clearly it's a trading vessel. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens, because a mile down is no joke. as an operational level to do archaeology at. So it's a question of how valuable it's reckoned an excavation will be versus the astronomical cost of doing it and doing it safely and effectively.
Yes. I personally, I can't really see that. I mean, return on investment there. I don't think it would tell us anything really profound, other than what they found already. That a ship of that age. What else could they find from actually spending the vast fortune on? Sorry, my cat is trying to rip my clothes. I don't know. It would be lovely if they could, but as you said, it would have to be all robotic, which I know they're very good with their sand hoovers.
Must be huge limitations.
I can't see how you can do any quality archaeology without having people on site. So I don't see it as doable, to be honest.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. The next article, I'm pretty sure this is from the Greek Reporter again, is the 4,000-year-old labyrinth-like Minoan structure discovered on Crete. Quite a photograph, that. Can't get a sense of scale from that.
There's something further on where I think there's people in it. So it's quite big.
Depends on which article and has which photographs. It says how big it is, but even so, with that. Oh, wait a minute, there's some cars. You see the cars over in the extreme right there.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's people just in the foreground there, and some planks. Oh, that helps. So it says a Minoan structure unique to Minoan archaeology has been identified in excavations near the town of Castelli on Crete. The Greek Ministry of Culture announced recently. I think some of you have probably seen this come up anyway. One or two. Somebody mentioned they'd seen it before. So again, it is an article that's been around a bit. So the monumental architectural complex. My article here is the 1st of August, so I don't know when it was actually found. No, that's wrong, because I've had this in my sort of inbox, as it were, for weeks and weeks.
Well, it might be wrong. That's the date of my article. What can I tell you?
Well, no, but this is the same article. They must have updated it, and that's why it became August the 1st. The monumental architectural complex has a circular shape, approximately 48 meters in diameter, covers an area of approximately 1,800 square meters. It's the first monument of this type to be identified and excavated in Crete, and archaeologists say it was perhaps a type of community building or a landmark for the wider area. That's a handy catch-all, isn't it?
Yes, other guesses are available.
The rings form in the centre a circular building with a diameter of 15 metres, so that must be the interior bit you can see there. And Zone A is surrounded by a second main zone in which radial walls intersect vertically with the rings of the lower levels, forming smaller spaces. Well, that's the visual of what he just said. So the main period of use seems to have been between 2000 and 1700 BC, while the presence of pottery indicates that the use of the monument continued into later times. Fine is located at the highest point of Papura Hill, almost 500 metres tall. It was discovered during work for the installation of radars for the new airport, which is being built on Crete. Yes, that's what I couldn't... Well, I thought I knew that it was because they were building a new airport. I'm thinking, why? They're building a new airport on top of a hill? That's novel. No, that explains it. That's where the radar is going. Anyway, the excavation research of the find must continue so that the archaeologists can interpret it and, of course, save it, given its uniqueness. An alternative location for the radars for the new airport is being sought. Yay. So I don't know if there's anything more that they're saying about that, except in a general sense, and a couple of guesses at what it may be.
Yeah, I don't have any guesses at all. It's intriguing, really.
Yeah, let's go back to that.
It's like so many of these things, isn't it? That you look at all that's left, and so if there's timber involved, that's all long since gone. So maybe this was a basement area divided up into storage sections, and it had a wooden floor over the top of it. Who knows? That's just another guess, but it's intriguing. What can you say?
I mean, we didn't choose the most exciting article to read out because, needless to say, there were several articles, when this press release or whatever came out, went straight to the Minotaur thing and the labyrinthine aspect of it, except that doesn't look very labyrinthine to me.
No, that was the first comment we made, wasn't it? It doesn't look like a labyrinth to me.
But, But, I'll just put up aerial view again. I expect it's one of those things where it's really hard, unless you're standing in there, and get a sense of the height of the walls and all those kinds of things and the context to get any sense of what that's about at all, on a human, burial chamber says, or is it a burial chamber? Class said, oh, sorry, that's not what I want. Class said, it looks like a broch to me. Well, actually,
and Nigel said just a little bit further on. Nigel said, looks like the base of a very tall tower. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. That would make sense, especially if it's on the top of the hill. Where else would that's for whatever reason. Whether you're building a lighthouse or a beacon or something like that. Now we're getting there. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. That's helpful. Neolithic radar, as Helen said. The light communication. It's a beacon.
Yeah. Simon said Ancient Architects has a video on the Mycenaean structure on Crete, similar content to this. That makes sense, doesn't it? Makes sense.
Yes, Ancient Architects. I've forgotten his name.
Matt.
Yes, Matt. That's right. Yes, I think that's right. He did do a piece on that. Anyway, it's a question. It's there, which is a good thing, and it's there to challenge our brains. And I think we've solved it. Between the Patreon prehistory guy. Patreon folk have solved the mystery. Let's move on, shall we? Now, it's not often we get to North America, which is a failing, a kind of failing, but it's born of not knowing enough, I guess, straight off the bat.
And to be fair, the sorts of the kinds of archaeology that are uncovered. I mean, there's some amazing mound structures in North America, but so much of the time when we're looking for deep past, that a lot of the stuff that's deep past in the Americas, they're under lakes now, aren't they? I mean, like that 9,000-year-old hunting grounds they found at the bottom of Lake Michigan, didn't they? So things like that. It's difficult to find the really, really old stuff.
Well, and this isn't really, really old at all. I've just realised that the latest date for this Cahokia is only 300 years before this house was built.
Yes. That puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. But Ancient Secrets at Cahokia. North America's first city. I think, what knocks my socks off is the emphasis on how huge this place was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I think we don't need to dwell on this too much, but just talk about what are the takeaways for you from this, Rupert.
To be honest, it smacks of a lot of the cultures in the Americas that we know. So whether it's Maya, Aztec, I mean, you look at some of the sites in Mexico, for example, of Teotihuacan and the like, where you look at these vast cities, huge cities, and it's that it just shows how easy it is for things to be lost to the mists of the past. A site as big as this, and just what do we know? Nothing.
The article quotes, where is it? Says undoubtedly one of the most advanced civilizations in North America. And this is the thing about it, that the puzzling history raises so many unanswered questions, particularly regarding its downfall, which has been a subject of ongoing debate. At its peak, this pre-Columbian metropolis in present-day southern Illinois was home to a staggering population of 40,000 across 6 square miles, earning it the moniker the City of the Sun. I actually have been to the Cahokia Mounds website, and they quote 20,000. But, am I splitting hairs here?
Maybe. It's I know what you mean. It's huge.
But the point is, around 12,000 AD, the inhabitants of Cahokia mysteriously abandoned their houses. 1200 AD, the inhabitants of Cahokia mysteriously abandoned their houses for unexplained reasons. So when the conquistadors arrived, they found no traces of the former inhabitants, leaving the fate of this once thriving civilization shrouded in mystery. So, I mean, the point is the folks from St. Louis University, it's the embarkation on a study to find out, really, because they've got a lot to work with there. They're doing the most comprehensive and authoritative 3D map of it, and they aim to provide a detailed and accurate representation of the famed prehistoric site, which will serve as a valuable resource for future studies and research. Suggests that not that much has gone on before. I may be wrong, don't know, but maybe it's new techniques that are enabling a more thorough and in-depth examination of it. So I mean,
it was entirely LIDAR that gave rise to this particular piece of research, anyway, wasn't it? So I can imagine that there's all sorts of stuff that's becoming apparent because of that.
Yeah, it must be amazing. All right, I don't think there's anything more than add to that. It's a point of interest, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Helen's commented that Cahokia is well worth a visit. Beautiful at sunset. I'll bet it is.
Yeah. John says it's hard to impress Europeans when you only have Clovis points to make megaliths.
Yeah.
Anything else, Rupert?
I don't think so. No. I mean, I am really intrigued by so many of these sites in the Americas, where because they didn't do anything megalithic per se, so a lot of the mound cultures, whoever they may have been, that just so much of this stuff, where you had large communities, and it's just vanished. We know nothing, comparatively speaking, and it is just more enigmatic, isn't it? And we do like enigmatic, really.
We do indeed. So just a brief word out there, folks. If you are on YouTube and you're watching the recording of this, thank you very much for tuning in and watching it. Sorry you couldn't see the live version of this, which we put out to our Patreon members. So the message is, if you want to take advantage of the many perks that we have for our Patreon members, and you'd like to support the channel, please do look at our Patreon page, link down below. Only $5 a month brings you loads of stuff, live versions of this, premieres, their own exclusive Monday Moot. That's the exclusive podcast we do every week. You'll never see that on YouTube. And there's loads of other stuff on the Patreon page that doesn't get this far. But anyway, thanks for hanging in with us. I hope you're enjoying the show. So we move on to the next thing. Rupert?
I'll just comment. Stuart has put a comment. Nathaniel Forson is an archaeologist and YouTuber working in pre-colonization American archaeology. Yeah, I've looked at a fair bit of Nathaniel's stuff. Actually, he does some really nice films. So yeah, good point, well made.
Oh, and Helen says she'll post some Cahokia to Patreon's Facebook.
Oh, nice.
Oh, right,
well
that's
done,
kind. Thanks. Yeah. Oh, great stuff. Look out for that then. All right. The next item on our little agenda is what is it? It's this
13,000-year-old sewing kit.
Sewing kit, yeah. Kahramanmaraş.
Well done.
There you go. Archaeological excavations in the... There's another good name, actually. Directly cave in Kahramanmaraş, southeastern.
I shall go there directly.
Southeastern Turkey. Oh, sorry, I've lost it. It wasn't scrolling, and then suddenly it was. Have revealed bone sewing needles and pins estimated to be 13,000 years old. This significant find highlights the historical importance of the region, located at a key transition point from the eastern Mediterranean and central Anatolia, and from the Caucasus to the eastern Mediterranean. Associate Professor Sedvet Erek from Ankara Hacıbayram Veli University's Department of Archaeology shared the Directly cave in the Dongul district on Şubat is one of the prominent settlements rich in cultural heritage in Kahramanmaraş. The excavation initiated about 18 years ago have provided crucial insights into the region's past, and the latest findings from this year date back to approximately 11,500 BC. Among the artifacts discovered are pierced bone needles, similar to modern sewing needles, and pins, essential tools for textiles and clothing. Erek emphasized that these findings show the deep historical roots of the region's current textile and clothing industry. The people of that era created tools and industrial items based on their culture and materials available to them. We have significant evidence of the consumption of wild sheep and goats in the cave, suggesting that fibres or similar materials essential for textiles were derived from them, Erek said. He added that cultural habits were transmitted through regional interactions. Today, Kahramanmaraş stands out significantly in textiles, with numerous companies exporting globally. It's funny how that happens, isn't it? Yeah. With numerous companies exporting globally. Although there may not have been exports in ancient times, I bet there blooming were, the cultural habits of the region likely spread to both the eastern Mediterranean and central Anatolia through regional interactions. Erek also highlighted that seasonal inhabitation of people in the cave and the presence of animal remains suggest that the skins and fur of mature animals were likely used in clothing and textiles. The continuous cultural tradition of textiles and clothing in Kahramanmaraş from past to present is evidence through these findings, he stressed. So, I love that picture. And do you know why I love that picture? Because that building could be any time. And that's probably what we miss a lot of the time from deep prehistory.
Yeah.
If they could build that like that now, they could build like that then. You know?
Yeah.
And
Well,
this
I
kind of
think
thing, no evidence at all.
No,
Anyway,
and something
sorry,
that
I'm going off on
that
one.
on before, there is some phenomenal stuff online from places in the Far East, notably China, where these beautifully lavish carved temples are constructed, huge buildings that are constructed with no metal at all. It's just extremely sophisticated joinery. And obviously anything like that would long have disappeared in the archaeological record or from the archaeological record. So, yeah, who knows what really has disappeared?
Well, anyway, that's a distraction from the main thrust of the article.
The intriguing thing here, of course, is when you get needles and pins and implication textiles, because you can imagine if people had got, we were doing that thing the other day about brain surgery. That you can see that you would need needles potentially for stitching up a wound, but you wouldn't want pins for that. So clearly this is textiles. And yes, okay, stitching hides together. And we know from various sorts of shelters around the world, dwellings, that hides being stitched together, absolutely. But when you've got needles this size, that textiles, one of the articles that we didn't include tonight because there wasn't really enough meat in it, it's just a statement really, that they found the oldest the oldest known example of textiles dyed with insect dye. So basically, like cochineal from beetles. It's not cochineal, but it's a red dye from beetles. And if you're going back thousands of years, and people are really getting sophisticated with textiles, then it just raises all sorts of questions about what has been, and once again, what has been lost to the archaeological record. The fact that this is 13,000 years old, but we know that the oldest rope, for example, is 40. The oldest known rope is 40,000 years old. Well, to make rope, you've got to have a good working knowledge of cordage and how to weave fibers together. And that's a huge gulf of time to be getting really sophisticated in weaving. And we just don't know because it's gone.
The other thing I would say before we leave this is don't be fooled by the fact that this is a cave excavation. I mean, this is contemporary with, I suppose, with Natufian culture, which is mostly over the other side of the Fertile Crescent there. And the Natufians, we know, were already settling down. So this thing about people living in caves, I mean, yes, it's opportunistic, but it made absolute sense to them, and they were still settling down. They were managing the ground, the territories around them, the landscape around them, and they weren't just scuttling away into the cave and living in a cave and coming out and hunting animals and going back into the cave again. They were managing their land around that place and probably, making huts, houses, whatever, around the cave. I expect it was the hoi polloi. I expect it was the chiefs or whatever that actually probably got to live in the cave, in the protected area. And the rest of the community would be outside in some way. So, yeah, I'm just saying, don't be fooled by the fact that this is a cave excavation. It doesn't mean that they were cave people or cavemen. As
well, it doesn't mean primitive, does it?
It doesn't mean primitive. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
No. There's some nice comments here. Sibylla said they wouldn't have had glass for windows, I suppose, and then Krim said vellum windows, animal skin shaved very thin. That's an interesting thought. I mean, I must admit that I don't have a problem with the notion of just having window frames, if you like, just have a hole that that you've got hide over it when the weather isn't great, but you can just open it to the elements when you want.
It wasn't a particularly good example, because I don't think a building at the time would absolutely look that way. It was a thought that sprang into my mind, when looking at a timber building like that, is that, well, that's probably what some things like that are missing. When we so misled by when all we've got to work with is stone. So misled.
Yeah. Richard said people were living in caves in Britain within living memory, and we shouldn't dismiss that, because you can still buy in Spain. You can still buy houses that are basically they're built onto the cave dwelling that's been there forever. And people use them for cooler parts of whether it's a wine cellar or whatever. But you can still buy cave dwellings with a house stuck on the front.
Isn't there a town on the Amalfi Coast?
It's called. Yes. What's it called?
No, I'm not.
I can't remember what it's called.
It won't happen.
But you're right.
Happen.
Yeah.
So perhaps somebody out there knows. I'm sure they do. A town on the Amalfi Coast somewhere that a large proportion of the inhabitants of the town are living in clay caves in the cliff. And very nice dwellings they are too. That's the other thing.
Yes, they are. Yeah. Sibylla has picked us up. Cave persons, she said.
Thank you. Yes, I knew as soon as I said.
Quite right.
I knew it. Yeah. In the outback of Australia, caves are frequently lived in. Yeah, sure. It makes perfect sense. Okay, so shall we move on to the next?
Yeah, go on then.
This is an interest. Now, I don't want to read all this out. Have you got salient points from this, Rupert? Because I think you've probably read it more thoroughly than I have. And it's quite long. I don't want to read the whole thing out.
It is long. Do you know what? I think it's worth cross-referencing to another article that came out a while ago that was from a conceptual point of view. If you're exchanging goods, how many times have we talked about what is the value of a pig, or what is the value of of a sword, whatever, that what is the exchange? And the what's come out of this research is the value of scrap metal, really. There have been a number of instances where people have excavated. It's been interpreted as this ritual burial of broken bits of metal. So this broken sword, it was broken and buried so that it couldn't be used in this life again. It could only be used in the afterlife. And nonsense. It's just scrap metal that's going to be melted down again. And so pieces, chunks of metal that an accepted value, an established approximation of value that you could buy whatever for this amount of bronze. It makes utter sense, and we've become, or we have been, so obsessed with obsessed with interpreting everything as ritual that you miss all the common sense aspects of value. You have to have a value of anything. If you were going to go and buy textiles, what is that dress worth in somebody's time? There must have been that much, if you see what I mean. I mean, that's the essence of it. There's a paragraph well before 2300 BCE, there seems to have been growing standardization in artifact forms, at least on a surface level. Distinct types of
where is that?
objects emerged.
Oh, got it. I've got
If
it.
you go
I've got it.
down, there's these
That's it. Got
the
it.
spread of European standards.
Yeah.
Distinct types of objects emerge, such as daggers or certain pottery vessels, which appear similar across large areas, but had different local uses in different places. There was a research, what I was alluding to, there was some research from about years ago, I think it was, where they found that there were standard essentially beads as a weight system that they found varied hardly at all over a 2,000-year period, just showing that there was an accepted weights and measures system. Even though we have no way of knowing what that applied to, we do know it was something that people were using in the Bronze Age.
The other thing
That's all I know.
The other thing is the focus on a wealthy elite. You know, there's the assumption that hoards like this would be associated with some kind of wealthy elite. And the other point about this article, I think, is not so fast. This could be just common exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right, Rupert? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure, what leverage the researchers have used in this particular example. What in this study, what leverage they've used to turn it on its head. What element of the research? So maybe it's me being dim and not being thorough enough.
I think it's that aspect of the amount of times that broken artifacts, bronze artifacts, have been found, and we have all these fanciful notions about why they'd been buried, but it's the fact that sometimes these things are broken down into smaller pieces, and that's the thing that implies a value system, if you like. If you've got a bronze axe head, but you only want, I don't know, a bag of sprouts, there comes a point where you do need to break things down into an accepted value. If an axe head, I'm just rabbiting now, but if an axe head is worth blah. And you've got 20 pieces that would have made an axe head, then clearly you can see a potential value in each of those fragments. It's that. Really.
The other thing I picked up from this was statistical analysis of the hoards determined that there were standardizations in the weights of things. In the hoards, and that's the dead giveaway. So it's an intriguing thing. I'll tell you another intriguing thing. I mean, going back in further in time, that I've picked up on doing studying Brittany and looking at Chris Scar's book about Brittany, landscapes of Neolithic Brittany, is that we talk about polished axe heads a lot, particularly the ones of jadeite from the Alps and stuff. But a lot of it, that was quite locally sourced, actually, the polished. But before that, there were polished rings. Polished rings were a thing. I'm thinking made of schist from some local quarries in Brittany, and they have been found all over northwestern France, up to certain limits. It didn't get all over the place, but either there's some kind of weird utility that we're completely missing from them. I think we're talking rings about anything from that to that shape. But I'm thinking, early currency. Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. I think coming much later. So, in fact, a friend of mine took a metal detector across my land some years ago, and something that you find quite a lot of down here are what are called Celtic money rings.
Yeah.
Whether they're Celtic or not is open to debate. But the thing is that they're bronze rings, which are they're about the size of a largish finger ring. They'd fall off your finger. They're a bit too big for that, but that sort of size. And they're very fine. So they're clearly not high value pieces, but they were worn on necklaces. So you could just take off. It's like coinage, really. They're rings that were used as financial exchange.
Yeah.
As I said, those are quite common down here.
Well, the schist rings that I'm talking about, around about 4,800 BC.
So you can see
Brittany.
how one would come from the other over time, wouldn't you? Yeah.
And also that they're flattish. They tend not to be, have a donut shape, but a flattened donut shape, So, so not per se armbands, but I suppose the flatter they are, the more you could get on your arm. Anyway, who knows? I'm going off one now. I just thought I'd mention it.
Interesting.
I'll put links in the by the time. I'll get around to it. It won't be immediate. It'll probably be the day after this gets recorded. I'll put the links to all these articles in the description down below, alongside links to our Patreon page, would you believe? And,
yes, of course.
And our Buy Me a Coffee page as well. Where you can find out about a Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge project. I won't witter on about it now, but if you're interested in the progress of the Neolithic and farming all the way from Anatolia over eventually to the plains of Wiltshire and Stonehenge, what a narrative that is. Well, it's one that Rupert and I are trying to hang together by making a series of films, which you may have caught up on. We started at Göbekli Tepe last year. This year we're continuing. We'll be bringing film back from Brittany. We've been to several other places. We've been to Stonehenge. So we're, threading together a narrative of the Neolithic all the way from Turkey to.
It's pretty epic, really.
Pretty epic. So we're only. We've got a fair bit of footage under our belt, but there's loads more to come, and we need your help. Basically, each stage of the journey is being funded through our Buy Me a Coffee page. Have a look at the link below. Go through to the link below to find out more. Enough. What is next?
Well done.
Lost civilization.
Before you move on, just pick up a couple of comments here, because Andrew has said duck weights from Mesopotamia. And absolutely, well done for pulling that up, because I'd forgotten about the duck weights.
I know nothing about the duck weights.
Oh, yes, you do. We've talked about duck weights. No, okay, no reason. Anyway, they're ducks. They're ducks, but they're a weight system. Are
you gaslighting me?
No, I promise you I'm not. No.
You're winding me up, mate.
In fact... I can't remember who it was that told me. I hadn't heard of them before last year. And was it Stephanie? It was somebody on the island tour last year who said, "Have you seen these?" And it was on the back of us talking about cowhide ingots, and why they were called cowhide ingots. Because they were the shape of cowhides, because it made them easier to tie together and tie them onto whatever. Stuart said shale armbands in the UK. I didn't know about shale armbands. That's interesting.
That's worth
Stuart, thank you very much.
Yeah. And Sibylla said standard weights and measures without anything written down. The mind boggles. Well, absolutely. Was there some kind of way of tallying? What was the tallying system? So often I'm sure in that there are so many artifacts that speak to that kind of thing. Often you find sticks with tally marks in them in the archaeological record, if you're lucky to find a bit of wood, Tally marks are sort of a common, what look like tally marks are quite a common motif in markings on wood. And I think people tend to go off and one trying to think, early language and what the ritual purpose of such marks would be. But tally marks,
True, but we should never forget Aya Nasir, should we? Aya Nasir, the absolute rogue trader of the Bronze Age. Who the earliest known customer complaints letter,
favourite character from prehistory
to Ian Nasir. Yeah, this man was so clearly, that this was a point in the Bronze Age where weights and measures were fully established at that point. So,
and there would have been such a job as a notary. You'd need to refer to somebody. Somebody had to be the keeper of something for it all to work.
And Sibylla said it makes sense that writing was invented mostly for bookkeeping and bureaucracy. Yes, sadly.
Well said. Well
you're
done.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Nice one, Sibylla. Okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah, go
on. Do you want to take this one? Can you read this, Rupert? I can't remember how long this article is. Is it a long one?
Not particularly.
Okay.
A lost civilization's partial alphabet was discovered in a social media post. You have to laugh. There
That's
are some
a good headline.
To social media. Hey?
Good headline. Made us click through, didn't it?
It says, a sequence of letters belonging to an ancient alphabet has been discovered in a most unusual way by someone scrolling through social media. The inscription on a slate slab unearthed in Spain is closely linked to the Phoenician alphabet, which was hugely influential on later writing systems, including Latin, Spanish, and English. Researchers hope that the finding will expand their understanding of a prosperous pre-Roman civilization's writing system. Until now, only incomplete or poorly dated samples have been found. The Spanish National Research Council announced the discovery in a June the 11th press release. Earlier this month, Joan Ferrer y Jane, I think that might be. Anyway, a software engineer based in Barcelona was browsing updates on X, formerly Twitter, from an archaeological dig at Casas del Turuniello in southern Spain, dating to the 5th century BC. The site is one of several connected with Tartessos. This civilization emerged in what is today's southwestern Spain from the cultural exchange between the Iberian Peninsula's indigenous dwellers and Phoenician settlers who arrived around the 10th century BC. Ancient Greek texts mention the existence of a city called Tartessos, which recent findings are revealing was in fact a complex culture with stunning material wealth due to abundant iron, silver, and gold in the region. This civilization mysteriously disappeared towards the end of the 5th century BC. El Turuniello was first excavated in 2015.
If you want to start,
featured a
if you want to, because it's quite long actually, Rupert. It's
well,
don't know if there's any way of compacting it
down.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you, I can't see what you're showing at the same time as.
You can't. You can't see the screen. Okay. No, I was intrigued.
I can't see you and it at the same time.
Right.
I could if I was on my other machine, but I'm not.
I understand. Okay.
Oh, so you got down to there, right? I can see you now. I've just I've moved things down. So if you look at scroll up a little bit more, there. So it's quite funny actually because the original photograph was upside down, and this chap, the researcher who recognised one of the characters in particular, so he was reading it upside down, but he spotted it straight away, which is pretty damned impressive. And it was this guy scrolling through Twitter that spotted that this had Phoenician-ish.
Yeah, I was trying to skip to the quote from him. He said, "As soon as I saw the slate, my eye went immediately to one symbol." Ferre says it was the Paleo-Hispanic version of the capital letter I, which he says can't be mistaken for anything else. So he wrote to the archaeologists who sent him high-resolution images, and he identified 15 symbols and hints of more letters that would require special imaging techniques to be identified. Yeah. So hats off to Mr. Ferre.
It's yes, Hawkeye they call the man.
Yeah,
well, they should do.
Yeah.
But it says only 2 alphabet inscriptions have been found prior to this. One with 27
Are we below
symbols,
the image or dated. Above it still?
Above it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the other with only a few symbols preserved. This new, well-dated example proves a clearer picture of the Tartessian writing system and confirms literacy amongst El Chirinuelo's inhabitants in the 5th century BC.
Mm-hmm.
It's we talk about history and prehistory, and isn't it rather wonderful when you find that there is writing that you didn't know anything about previously, or you've only got hints about it. It's that, really. It's that, again, it's in many ways similar to weights and measures, isn't it? That you have this system that is communicated across wide cultural divides, if you like. There is this accepted aspect of communication, and how easy it is that we lose all this. I did find this really quite intriguing.
I think that also that linguists, things like this don't exist in a vacuum. That the evolution of linguistics is a wonderful proxy for the movement of people. And so the implications of some things like this, I'm not saying this particular one in this case, but discoveries like this have deep implications for additional frameworks that can gel with what hypotheses of how people were moving in prehistory, and that can gel with the genetic aspect of actual genetics, can gel of human beings, can gel with the genetics of linguistics, because linguistics is a genetic study. We should have Rick on to talk about this a bit more, so people get that in their heads, that language is can be the way people were speaking can be extrapolated almost on a sort of genetic basis through in language. I don't understand it myself. I'm spouting what I understand, which is very little. But it's amazing. All I'm saying is it's amazing what can be done with language if you've got a few clues. So this is probably more important than it lets on at face value. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, which leaves us with, you ready? Do you want to do a rant? Do you want to put your grumpy hat on?
Oh,
and this is the last article. You're gonna take us out with a bang.
It's not really grumpy, is it? Really, it's. I tell you, all right. Researchers cast new light on the Antikythera mechanism mystery. Right now, I think many of us are enthralled by the Antikythera mechanism. Commonly called the world's first computer device. Discovered in 1901 off the Greek island of Antikythera. In a nutshell, researchers have been analysing another of the discs from the mechanism, and they're pretty sure that it relates to the Greek lunar calendar. And the reason that we're grumpy about this is that what actually set us off on this in the first place was that I don't have the headline in front of me. Have you got it, Mike? Where it said that that basically cosmic ray research techniques had brought them to a new understanding of.
It says, so this is what I think, is this what you mean? They have used statistical modelling techniques developed to analyse gravitational waves to establish the likely number of holes in one of the broken rings of the Antikythera mechanism. Is that what? Is that?
There was a more irritating headline in one article that talked.
This is probably not the one then.
It gave the impression that it was this cosmic ray research that had actually given them a different angle on this. But when you actually read any of the articles completely, then it doesn't say anything of the sort. It does tell you that these researchers who were involved in the cosmic ray research have calculated things in a similar way. But it's just a load of nonsense to make a headline that would make people read, and it did make me read it. But
of course, it did.
That's what made me put my grumpy hat on.
It's almost like they used the mechanism as leverage to, I know it's unfair. No, I won't say. I won't say anymore.
Well,
I don't want to show any disrespect to people doing hard work.
They are doing the hard work. It's just sometimes I think that it's the journalists who put these articles out that sometimes gild lilies a little bit too much. The salient piece of this really is that I'll read a paragraph here. It says they show that the ring is vastly more likely to have had 354 holes corresponding to the lunar calendar than 365 holes which would have followed the Egyptian calendar. So we are about real nuance stuff here. There is little doubt that the Antikythera mechanism is one of the most staggering things in prehistory. And the fact that the knowledge and understanding of astronomy to have arrived at that point to be able to create the Antikythera mechanism anyway, that knowledge must have been an established thing for really quite a long time. You wouldn't have just that would have been the first one of those that was made. That's highly unlikely. There must have been quite a few efforts in arriving at least. That. Yeah. And there's been some interesting research that that says that conceptually, the knowledge that this could be done. And the accuracy of calculating it probably far exceeded their engineering capabilities of being able to make it as accurate as it was intended to be, if you see what I mean. Does that make sense? That they wanted it to be able to accurately predict the movements of the planets and therefore the dates of this game and that game, which is marked on the discs that they found. But the fact that they're saying that from an engineering point of view, it's highly unlikely that it was as accurate as it was intended to be.
I think Sibylla put a finger on it here. So do you feel that the importance of the mechanism is being hijacked for some kind of nonsense?
Yes. Yes, basically.
Yeah. What is it?
Yeah.
What sprang to my mind, Sibylla, was it the Synod of Whitby? Or something like that. That they gathered, the good and the great gathered to decide how many angels could dance on the head of a pin.
Was it? Yeah.
Something like that. I'm probably, making it up. It's just that it's the hammer to crack a nut, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't think that Bayesian statistics and the rest are quite the right tools. because you can so bend them to your will, can't you? That's the trouble.
Well, it is what they say, isn't it? Rubbish in, rubbish out.
Rubbish in, rubbish out. Yeah, yeah. So we don't know. Maybe we're, maybe we just don't understand. It could be that. We're sort of ranting out of our thickness. There is that possibility. And if anybody, out there, live now or watching the recording in the future, can put us right on our ignorance, then
yes,
what you say while Rupert is drinking a glass of
card-carrying member of the ignorati. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nigel.
Excellent job. All right. Our work here is done, Rupert. We've put out a 90-minute show, and with
90 minutes. Where did that go?
Yeah.
Well done for sticking around, folks.
Listen, Patreon folks who are watching us live, thanks for being with us. I've really enjoyed this because, knowing we're just speaking to the crew here, etc. Folks on YouTube, if you're watching the recording, as I said earlier, thanks for getting this far. Much appreciate your viewing. But before we go, if you could possibly help support us by hitting the like and subscribe button and the notification button so you get updates and when we go live again, or we're putting something like this out in future, then please do so. Don't forget to check out our Patreon page and our Buy Me a Coffee page down below. That's it. Thank you once again, folks, for being with us. You make it all worthwhile. It is goodbye from me.
And it is goodbye from me. And we'll see you very soon. Thanks again.
All right, folks. Bye-bye for now.